I am Zoe Clark, joined by another influential Detroiter who's really thinking about the future of the city, particularly the future of Detroit students, and that is Nikolai Vitti, Superintendent of Detroit Public Schools Community District. Good to have you back at the desk.
Always good to be here.
So I want to start, actually, you made some news this month. You sent a letter to Governor Whitmer, Mayor Duggan, some other state and city officials. It addressed your concerns about marijuana use, particularly edibles and vape pens among students. What's going on? Like, why did this become such a big deal that you needed to send this message?
Well, it just didn't feel like a lot of people were even aware of the problem. So, one reason for the letter was to create more awareness from a policy level, state and city locally, but also use the media to talk directly to families so that they could be more aware of this problem that's happening. Obviously, we inform parents when we have an incident like a edible or a vape pen, more edibles. So the feedback has been positive that parents have greater awareness of the problem. Talk to the governor's staff and some city council members about maybe rethinking the state law around marijuana and maybe thinking differently about ordinances. But in DPSCD, we're definitely supportive of the legalization of marijuana. I think it's just about evolving and understanding what are the new challenges that were created with legalization. And I think maybe the letter sparked more different conversations and greater awareness about what we could do differently moving forward.
What would you like to see? There were sort of some recommendations or some requests that you want to see from the state.
Yeah, well, one would be, for example, Colorado passed a law prohibiting the manufacturing of edibles in candy form. And so we see a lot of students, young students, second grade, third graders, consuming the edibles thinking they're candy. So practical jokes, curiosity. So that could alleviate some problems. Using revenue for more public awareness campaigns so that adults, if they do have them in a home, they're secured. Talking to children more about not consuming candy or edibles or and the harmful impact it can have on minors. Also, more revenue could be spent on detection systems at schools, especially linked to the vape pens. So those are some recommendations moving forward that we have. Vape pens, different issue. That's not necessarily linked to marijuana,
right?
But we need to crack down more on gas station selling to youth. And I think more public awareness campaigns about the dangers of vape pens. I know that they're sort of sexier and more glamorous than the old cigarettes, but as we know, often maybe more harmful than the traditional cigarettes.
Yeah. So let's turn
and more addictive.
Right, which we know.
Yeah.
Let's turn a little bit to you and your work. In March, the school board extended your contract until 2028.
Yeah.
This could make you one of the longest serving superintendents.
Yeah. Well, I'm currently the second longest serving superintendent in DPSCD history.
Yeah.
Superintendent Jefferson, 14 years, so I'm going into year 8.
Yeah.
I still love what I do.
Yeah.
I see the purposefulness of my job and the impact that I'm having. Sometimes I get frustrated that we're not going fast enough and not scaling improvement to all kids fast enough, but it's undoubtable that we've improved. I think people that have been watching, even casual observers, know that we're improving. But I still wake up every day encouraged, challenged, and supported, at least by my school board and the employees in the school system. Like to see more support at the state level with legislation and at the federal level, especially with funding. Often would like to see more parents involved and engaged, but knowing, their just life challenges gets in the way of that. But I'm proud to say that I'm second longest serving superintendent, and who knows, maybe I'll be the longest if the right conditions exist.
What are the biggest challenges that you're facing right now, whether it's short-term or long-term, as you look to the future?
Well, I think to answer that question, I'll talk externally and internally. Externally, equal and equitable funding. I think Governor Whitmer and the current legislature has made strides in improving per pupil funding, increasing more grant funding, concentrating funding on at-risk students. That has helped, but we're still talking about a formula that's outdated and unequal. And I think that it has to be solved. I mean, we cannot go to another conference. We can't get another report about Michigan funding still being inadequate when it comes to public education. So not only is the funding generally still low when you look at comparison to 50 states, but it's still unequal. So the formula has to change by not relying on local funding to initiate the funding process, and then getting to equitable, where we're funding students in need at higher levels so that they have more resources. If we don't fix that problem, then DPSCD will always be challenged with facilities, not having enough money to deal with special education, not enough funding to deal with transportation costs, and really not enough funding to create equal opportunities when you look at poverty and the history of race. Internally, chronic absenteeism, we've improved, but our data is clear. If a student misses 9 or fewer days, they're 3 to 5 times more likely to be at and above grade level, state assessments, and college ready on PSAT, SAT. And so, and then beyond that, I would say the other challenge is just continuing to improve climate and culture. We have schools that are fantastic. You can feel the energy. We do something with students called Love, Challenge, and Prepared. And we have students take a survey where they answer questions about whether they feel loved, challenged, and prepared. And we have schools that are above the national average. And then we have other schools that are significantly below the national average. And it's just chipping away on getting the right leader, developing the right future leaders, recruiting and retaining teachers to make every school where students feel loved, challenged, and prepared above the national average. And that doesn't happen overnight, so that's why the sustainability, I think, in my leadership and the board's leadership is important, so you can just chip away at the problem and scale excellence.
Until at least 2028. Nikolai Vitti, Superintendent of Detroit Public Schools Community District. I always appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me, as always.